It's nuttier than Nicolas Cage.
It is. You can take it simply, or you can really dive into it and look for all sorts of hidden meanings. It's so perfectly done.
Their dedication borders on masochism.
Okay, right there, that silence you hear is the moment of silence we're having for the Fright Club songs, which will be no more. We're going to have to announce here to the live crowd at Gateway Film Center. We were advised that maybe if we want the podcast to be on the maximum amount of outlets,
We should say Spotify. If we want the podcast carried on Spotify.
Some frown upon copyrighted music.
Or won't play your podcast.
So even though, as you know, our lawyers, right, said you can make a fair use argument, we're like, you know what, we still have the Fright Club hits playlist on Spotify, but from here on in, we're just going to think about the songs that we would have used, I guess. So anyway, welcome to it. It's the Fright Club podcast live from the Gateway Film Center, Columbus, Ohio. She is Hope Madden.
He's George Wolf.
And we're from madwolf.com. By the way, I don't know if we made the actual official announcement. Madwolf.com just added to Rotten Tomatoes.
That's right.
Panel.
That's right.
So,
Tomato meter, bitches.
Tomato meter.
That's right.
So, yeah,
you know what that means?
What's
Mandy
that?
Is fresher.
Mandy, that's right. We've got to talk about Mandy because it's coming out this week. We just saw it. A lot of hype. It's crazy. It's batshit crazy. It's so crazy, as we were saying in Happy Hour, it makes Nicolas Cage seem not so crazy.
No, it's exactly. It's nuttier than Nicolas Cage.
It is.
And it's not like he's a dialed-down performance.
No.
I mean, he's out there.
Yeah, it's out there.
But it's farther out.
We liked it a lot. Go see it if you can.
Yeah,
and you can check out our review on the website at madwolf.com. Also, one that we were talking earlier also in Happy Hour, The Nun is out, getting so much hate on the internet, and we didn't think it deserves that much. It's
Actually,
not great.
I can't imagine that movie generating that much passion one way or the other.
Yeah.
It's just, it
seems
was
be,
better
though.
than either Annabelle movies. It looked great. It was just, slight and whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Okay, so that's what's going on with the latest horror movies out in theaters. We also have to welcome Fright Clubber number 1, John Dean is here, and it's his birthday.
It's his birthday. Happy birthday.
Spending his birthday with us, and if you don't know, you may not know, I work with his wife, Heather, and I apologize to her tonight for, he's going to be here. She said, oh, no, thank you for taking him off my hands. So that's right. Congratulations, John. Happy birthday. Glad you're here. One thing that we've been doing the last couple of weeks, right, we've been asking people, since tonight's theme is scary fairy tales.
Yes. So we asked people to take a fairy tale title and turn it into a scary movie, quickly. And, man, we got tons.
We did it on Twitter, at Fright Club Pod.
That's correct.
And we got some great ones.
So many that I have to read them because I can't remember this many.
Run through them real quickly.
Okay. Wiener, the Noose Girl, that was his. Daniel, he had many. Goldilocks and the Three Wares. Rumpelstiltskin, I like that one.
That's good.
Hercules, if you are touched by Midas, pray for death. And then Ghostville Hero had Warlock and the Three Bears. Three Little Squeal Like a Pigs. I like that
That's
one.
good.
Steve had Alice in Hell. D-Zach had The Boy Who Cried Wolf Creek. Nice.
That's good.
Nice.
D-Zach is here tonight. Very nice.
Chad had Cinderella. Tommy and Tammy, they had a bunch, so we're going to run through these. Red Riding Blood, Snow White, and the Seven Dwarfs, 7 like the movie 7. Exorcist 4, The Princess and the Pea Soup. The Emperor's New Hatchet. Dr. Moreau and the Three Little Pigs.
Nice.
And Jack and the Beanstalker.
Those are good. And they're here tonight with their new grandchild right up here in front. Starting them early with the
That's
Fright Club.
right.
I love that.
We
I
love him
that.
so much.
And then Melissa, our senior feminist correspondent, had Creeping Beauty and the Little Slash Girl.
Silas had The Deadly Mermaid. Silas actually also gave us a short plot for all of his, which I thought was really awesome. He had Sleepless Beauty, Never Sleep Again. And then Nathan Andrew had Donkey in Human Skin, and Pink Paradox had Little Dead Riding Hood.
All right, those are great, all of them.
So here are our top 2, and we want you guys to vote by applause. Our favorites were Rumpelstiltskin or The Boy Who Cried Wolf Creek. So
Okay.
you do this a lot. You do this.
All right, so who likes Rumpelstiltskin best? Okay. How about The Boy Who Cried Wolf Creek? All right, I think
It's
D-Zach
official.
has it. It always helps when you bring a cheering section with you to the theater. But no, those are good. And thank you to everybody that chimed in at Fright Club Pod on Twitter, because that was a lot of fun. We'll have to think of a question for next time and give away another T-shirt. And by the way, speaking of next time, next Fright Club Live going to be right back here October 10th. We are going to show...
Because you love it so much, George Wolf, we are going to show Black Sheep.
That's going to be fun. Yeah.
And we're going to do a podcast on mutant animals.
Mutant animals, and we're going to try something new. If all goes well, we're going to try to Facebook it live while we do it. At least the podcast part of it.
Because the rest of it would be copyrighted.
Again, lawyers. I don't do good with copyrights. So, yeah, mark that down. We'd love to see you back here. All right. A lot of housekeeping. Are we done? Are we through with all that?
I think we are.
As we get to fractured or scary fairy tales, what's the ground rules? What were the guidelines that you set yourself to?
So just really that, first I was looking at, because there are so many, I was looking at ones that were actually, they took a story, that you're all familiar with, and changed it in one way or the other. Because it's a funny thing about fairy tales is that primarily the majority of what we consider fairy tales, they were originally not meant for children, which is why they're so scary. They were from the oral tradition of people, like adults, entertaining themselves over the fire before the written word. And they were collected by people like the Brothers Grimm. And then, sold to children, but in fact that's not their primary audience, which is why you're just like, this is scary. Why tell me this story as a child?
Well, I don't think you can really diminish the impact that Disney had on that, because Disney took those and so many
Neutered?
of them.
Is that the word you're looking for?
Almost all of them, maybe all of them, were public domain. So Disney came around, they grabbed them, and then they copyrighted what they did, and then so that became just, that's the treatment. And that's what you're talking about, how you water down a dark story and make it so Disney-fied.
So I think Hans Christian Andersen actually penned his. He wrote his own, and they were just creepy on their own for no reason other than he seems like a creepy guy. And then what Disney did with his Little Mermaid, just good Lord.
Yeah.
But then he did this one that horror film The Red Shoes is based on, which is was not familiar with this one, and this spoiled girl gets these like blessed shoes, and then they will not stop dancing until she's dead. She just dances until she's dead, and it's the most awful thing. It's like, he was a dark man. He had some troubles. Who hurt you, Hans?
So we're looking past the neutered versions toward the dark and scary fairy tales. So you want to get rolling?
I do. So I'm starting with one that is really, really underseen. I wanted to pick one that probably most people hadn't seen, and it is kind of a straightforward reimagining of a fairy tale that you are familiar with.
And this is at number 5, and this is from 2007. After meeting a mysterious girl on a dark stretch of road, a young salesman is invited to a beautiful house with bizarre secrets and no way to escape. Hansel and Gretel.
그러니까 죽어버려. 죽으란 말이야. 죽어.
시겨. 이 집엔 애들한테 뭔가가 있어요.
One thing about this one, it certainly takes a dark twist to the story, but it's not. I think some people may not find it that straight up horrific of a horror film.
I suppose so. I mean, as you get further along, it's creepy, and in this sort of nightmarish way. But as you get further along, I mean, there's some corpses pile up in this one.
It takes some twists.
It does. It's basically a story. As fables will, it's like a story with a moral. It's a story about unwanted children, is what it is sort of at its root. And it also, it sort of puts you in the mind of that Twilight Zone, the part in the film Twilight Zone where, the voice of Bart Simpson.
Yeah, Nancy Cartwright.
There you go.
Yeah, and Kevin McCarthy is in that one where the cartoons where they have to do everything that the little boy says. Yeah, that one, yeah.
It's a little bit like that. But it looks really great, as sort of those enchanted forest kind of movies go. It really looks great.
It does.
And what happens inside the cabin or the cottage in the woods, I mean, a lot of times when you see a horror film and the idea is things are too good to be true, you really feel it in a way that's ugly. And in this one, it takes a long time to get to that. I mean, he doesn't want to be there. The lead, his car crashed, and he's just there because he can't figure out how to get out of there. But other than that, he doesn't seem to. It seems like a great place. I mean, it's just not super typical in the way it plays off this notion of being trapped with what amounts to evil children, and you're going to have to do what they want, or they're going to kill you. Which is really I think we all feel that way sometimes.
Yeah, and no doubt it does. The production design on this one is great.
It is.
It looks fantastic. And that's our number 5 of Fractured Scary Fairy Tales, the Korean version of Hansel and Gretel from 2007. Moving up to number 4, pretty famous. I think you all know it. A committed dancer wins the lead role in a production of Swan Lake, only to find herself struggling to maintain her sanity, from 2010 Black Swan.
Our new Swan Queen, the exquisite Nina Sayers.
I'm Lily. You're gonna be amazing.
It's the role, isn't it? It's all this pressure. I knew it'd be too much. I knew it.
What's she doing here? He made me your alternate. How do you know where I live? I have my ways. She's after me.
Nobody's after you.
Please believe me.
Sweet girl. Sweet girl. What happened to my sweet girl?
She's gone!
Now, you were talking about the red shoes just a little bit ago, and obviously that one comes into play a lot in this movie.
It does, yeah. They talk a lot about the non-horror original version of the Red Shoes, which apparently every ballerina has watched 100 times, except Mila Kunis' character, who couldn't give a shit. Which is, I think, the first time you're like, I like Mila Kunis' character.
Yeah, she's great in this, and of course Natalie Portman won the Oscar.
She
for this.
did. She did.
And she's fantastic.
She is, and her performance is very creepy. First of all, right from the beginning of the trailer, that like baby voice that she has, she seems so brittle. And then the farther along the movie gets, the more like her face hollows out. Which, I mean, our niece was a ballerina, and so we were around these people, and their dedication borders on masochism.
Yeah.
Which I think you see in this film in a way that exploits the horror of it.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned her voice, because that was one of the things as Natalie Portman was transitioning from a child actress to an adult. She was really having trouble making her voice sound more adult. And in this movie, they actually wanted her to go back for the early scenes and make it sound more childlike, which is just the opposite of what she had been really taking voice lessons and working on, to have more of a mature voice. And it kind of caused her some anguish to do that. But it's part of her transformation as a character, to move from that real innocent, very shy girl into the character that she becomes.
And I think, aside from sort of the counterpart that is Mila Kunis' character, Barbara Hershey is amazing in this movie as the smothering...
You just want to smack her face.
Yeah, she's just this smothering, overbearing mother who's living vicariously through her daughter because she had her chance and really wasn't talented enough to pull it off. And she's amazing.
Not only
in
that,
this movie.
but there's that undercurrent of she may have abused her, too. There's that little bubbling undercurrent there, that there could have been some stuff going on. And one of the many things I love about this movie, too, is the color contrast.
Oh,
it's all black, white, as the characters change. Somebody's wearing all white, she's wearing all white, then later she's wearing all black. And the color contrast throughout the movie is great.
The whole movie, to me, is a counterpoint to The Wrestler.
Yeah.
Because in both cases, right, it's there's a shelf life to the individual who is putting themselves through a tremendous amount of physical damage for the entertainment and enjoyment and sort of spectacle of men, for men to determine their value. And it's in this instance, in the instance of ballerinas, and this particular ballerina, it's I'm not saying it's worse. It's not like things turned out that well for Mickey Rourke in that movie, but it's horror. It's horror in this particular case. And I think that it's really handled incredibly well. And I think so well that a lot of people mistook it and didn't realize until, again, the body count at the end, that it is a horror film.
I think that's right. And I think Aronofsky did not run from that. He said that's what he was set out to make, a psychological horror film. And I think the marketing department maybe didn't get on board with that from the very beginning. And a lot of people, I think that's why a lot of people didn't realize that's what it is. But it's done so well. I mean, he's such a good director. Black Swan from 2010, number 4 on our Scary Fairy Tales list for this edition of Fright Club Live. Moving up to number 3, which is one that this has been on a couple of countdowns, I think, that we love this one so much, from 2015. In Warsaw, a pair of mermaid sisters are adopted into a cabaret. When one seeks love with humans, the other hungers to dine on the human population of the city. It's The Lure.
Wyciągnijcie nas, nie bójcie się, przecież was nie zjemy. Wyjemy, 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 wyjemy.
This is another one that got a little bit of a misnomer, I think, from the outset, that everybody just kind of dubbed it the vampire mermaid movie, and they're not really vampires.
No, they're not at all. But here's one of my favorite things about this trailer, which, of course, if you're just listening to it and you can't see it, you don't see the subtitles that they're singing. They're sirens, right? They're singing from the ocean, help me out of the ocean.
Yeah.
I won't eat you. I won't eat you. I won't. She just keeps saying, I won't eat you. Do that work? I mean, I know they're pretty and they're naked, but come on. If somebody keeps saying they're not going to eat you, they're probably going to eat you.
Well, it worked here. And this goes back to what you were talking about earlier with The Little Mermaid.
Yes.
Because this is the fractured fairy tale we're talking about for this movie.
Oh, yeah. This is very definitely The Little Mermaid in its own incredibly bizarre way. This is such a bizarre movie, and in the best possible way. It's set in 1980s Warsaw. It's really about Poland sort of discovering itself, and it's a musical, and there are killer mermaids, so the whole thing. Okay, well, that's all right. That's a pitch.
Yeah, it is.
But
I'm intrigued.
Yeah, but A Little Mermaid is really the story of a girl who gives away too much of herself for a boy who doesn't deserve it. And then she dies. So, right? I mean, it's not the Disney one. She dies. She turns into sea foam. I sobbed the first time I read this in the 4th grade. I sobbed. She's sea foam. So this one is much closer to that. It's very dark, but it works in a lot of other sort of seafaring tales about sirens and about sea monsters, and it's really fun when it gets into that, but also in the sort of political way of Poland trying to figure out who they are and sort of whoring themselves out and becoming something they're not. That's really what it comes down to. I think that's the really underlying theme, but this fairy tale fits it so perfectly.
And there's the contrast between the two sisters, because the one sister tries to warn the other sister who's off chasing love that it's not going to end well.
No,
yeah,
you should just eat people.
That's right. And they have those, those wonderful, those tails were 6 feet long and weighed over 50 pounds.
Wow.
To put on the costume.
They looked like they smelled bad.
They did look like they smelled,
really
which is
did.
perfect.
Yes.
Which is perfect.
They ought to.
And when they go to the cabaret and they launch into these numbers, it's like ABBA songs. There's just like pixie dust everywhere, and everybody's happy and running around, and then we go back to the eating of the people and the mermaid. So it's a crazy-ass movie.
Yeah, it is.
But,
it is definitely unlike any other movie. But it's also fun because most of the fairy tales that we're familiar with are Eastern European in origin, so it's great to see, not just an Americanized version, but an Eastern European version. And there are a couple of others that I really like that are from Eastern Europe. One is Dale, and then another Little Otik. So those are both super weird, really worth checking out Eastern European versions of their own fairy tales.
Yes, and that is number 3 on our list of fractured fairy tales, The Lure. Moving up to number 2, and it is the one we're going to see tonight. A wolf drives through the woods around an isolated German village. Jacob, the young local police officer, is onto him, but sense something more in the darkness. From 2014, Dare, Samurai. Okay, we've slipped away, as we like to do, so we can talk about tonight's movie, Dare, Samurai. We learned how to pronounce it right.
That's right.
Which is a good thing. We've learned something this week, and we tried to. Yeah, this one, for people that have seen it, obviously, you're talking about fairy tales. For this one, you're talking about the big bad wolf.
Yes, which is, first of all, very appropriate because it's a German film.
Yeah.
But also incredibly common as far as fairy tale figures that make their way into horror films. So many that really, I just wanted to narrow it down to one, and we went with this one. But you've got one that we've shown before that we love, Big Bad Wolves.
Yeah.
Which is, it's got definitely visually some fairy tale elements to it, although it's the least that actually tells a fairy tale type story. But also, of course, The Company of Wolves, Neil Jordan's 1984 movie, which
like
is
that one very much.
The Red Riding Hood story.
Yeah.
And, of course, there are a ton of Red Riding Hood type films that are just werewolf movies. I mean, it just really lends itself. There was one, Dead Time Stories, which we talked about with Jeff Frummis on our anthologies episodes
that's right.
as well.
Yeah.
And every single one of those shorts was some sort of a reworked fairy tale, including one about the Big Bad Wolf. So it's, and it unsurprisingly, right, that's the main villain. So you've always got your wicked witches, or your evil stepmother or whatever, but the big bad wolf, especially in German fairy tales, is your most common villain. So it makes sense that it transcends nicely into horror.
Yeah, and this one, as far as the movie goes, it's a mover. It's always about 80-some minutes.
It's pretty quick.
It does. It moves. And it's just, well, there's just metaphors all over the place.
Yes, very much.
That are, and the biggest one, I don't want to give away too much here, but the samurai is a sword-wielding samurai.
Yes.
And in case you didn't get the sword metaphor early on, they really drive it home at the end.
They do.
Very
They
much
do.
so. As the film becomes, well, you've got the young policeman who ends up stalking, trying to catch this samurai on the loose with mayhem. And sometimes the bloodshed is very artfully staged.
Yes.
A couple of the scenes there made me think a little bit of the original Let the Right One In.
Mm-hmm.
Not as beautifully staged, but a little bit reminiscent there.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, and so as the two characters, the samurai and the young policeman, get closer and closer and closer, you know, the metaphor of coming to terms with who you are becomes a little bit more clear.
You know, and at that point, it's clear that the character of the samurai is more or less the figure of Jacob's id.
Jacob is the young
police
policeman,
officer, who's very unimpressive. I mean, he's a sweet person, and nobody is intimidated by him in the town.
Right.
And
the
he makes
local
miniatures of the town. I mean, there's
which also made me think of course, Hereditary. Yeah,
but a lot of it just sort of speaks of repression.
Yeah, because he's already he's teased by some of the local kids. Well, the kids, they're in their 20s, but about maybe his tendencies. You know, they make some jokes. So you get the feeling that he's had this for a while.
Right.
He's grown up with this. And then there's the scene where he maybe imagines himself making out with a girl that he meets along the way, but it doesn't happen. So
yeah, he's not very bold.
He's not bold.
The samurai actually points out to him at one point.
Right, but there's the metaphor of being afraid to let out what's in you.
Yes.
So yeah, the metaphors are rampant here.
Yes. And also, again, we just keep saying it, Pit Bukowski as the samurai just cuts such a fascinating lunatic figure.
He does.
And he's absolutely perfect in this role.
He is, and just in case you don't get enough, stick around because there is a shot after the credits that just one more shot of Pit Bukowski in case you needed one with that maniacal grin on his face. But he drives it home. So it's a quick read, it's quick viewing. And there is definitely some artful bloodshed.
Yeah, it looks great. It's a little bit dreamy. It's fun, you know, and very interesting, thought-provoking. More so, to be honest with you, than I realized.
Yeah.
More thought-provoking than I realized.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely so. And I think there are more than a few people here tonight that haven't seen it.
Right.
Only talked to a couple of people in Happy Hour that did see it. So we'll ask for a definite head count or a showing of hands here in a second when we get back in there. But I think there's a bunch, and we always like that.
Oh, yeah, that's one of my favorite things.
That's what you try to do,
That's
really.
exactly right.
Yeah, so it's good stuff. Good house tonight, and I look forward to seeing it. So let's get back in there and run Dare Samurai. This is the one we're going to see tonight, so obviously we don't want to say really much anything about it. How many people have seen it? Oh, just a couple.
Wow.
We love that. That's great. So, yeah, we don't want to spoil anything,
No,
right?
we just want to say, I think you're going to love Pit Bukowski as much as I do, because he's basically, as you can see for just a second, he's like a cross between Iggy Pop and Ted Levine. Yes, please.
Plus, his name is Pit Bukowski.
I know. It's like he's a perfect man.
You made that up for the movie. So, Dare Samurai, we'll see that soon, and that takes us up to number 1 from 2006. It tops our list of fractured fairy tales. In Spain of 1944, the bookish young stepdaughter of a sadistic army officer escapes into an eerie but captivating fantasy world, Pan's Labyrinth.
There will be a journey that will make you believe. In darkness, there can be light. In misery, there can be beauty. In death, there can be life. Pan's Labyrinth.
This one's such an incredible film by Del Toro. Probably both of our favorite movies. This is our favorite movie of Del Toro's, isn't
Oh,
it?
yeah, easily.
Yeah.
This is a perfect film.
It's so fantastic. Not only the way it looks, it's got so many themes going on at the same time, and how he treats them all in such a fantasy world. And you can take it simply, or you can really dive into it and look for all sorts of hidden meanings. It's so perfectly done.
It is, and it's obviously it's utterly glorious to look at, and the story is just heartbreaking. This perfect story about a little girl who desperately needs to escape from the horror of her war-torn life. And then the vivid imagination, that spawns a story. Or maybe it really happened. Maybe there really is this fawn and And the way he balances that, which is something that very few filmmakers do as well as he does, balances the idea that maybe this is all her imagination, or maybe no, maybe this is the reality. I mean, I can name probably 30 movies that make an attempt. I can name none that come within, 50 miles of doing it as well as this movie does.
Yep.
And I think everybody loves Doug Jones. Right, the pale man and the fawn, and he's also, of course, the creature. But it's Sergi Lopez who plays her stepfather in this movie, who is magnificent in everything I've ever seen him in, and I've seen him in 3 different languages, right?
Yes.
English, French, and Spanish language. He's always creepy. He's always amazing, and I'd love to see him in another 30 films. He's great in this movie.
Doug Jones was the creature in The Shape of Water.
Shape of Water.
He was also in Hellboy.
Yeah, well, he's always, he's,
so Del Toro's.
Yes.
Plus, you checked him out on IMDb. You said his credits are like 200 or something.
Yes, he's got a lot of credits. And usually the roles are like weird tall clown, creepy slender man. So he
He's
gets
got
a
a
lot
niche,
of
but
he's got a
man, he
niche.
fills it. No, but you're right. The way this is a movie that can just be dissected. I mean, you could take it scene by scene, and you can find out the things you talked about, how it all of a sudden it makes the narrator's point of view a little bit untrustworthy.
Right.
Like,
Right.
could this really be happening? And you go back and trace it, or the beginning of the scene, you can find out, okay, he finds a way to put that doubt in your mind.
Right.
Before it even starts.
And the story, Princess Moana story, is not an existing fairy tale. It's a fairy tale that Del Toro wrote to base the rest of the film around. And there are other really good films that do something similar, like Suspiria, for example. It reminds you of fairy tales, but it's not a reimagining of an existing fairy tale. And it's gorgeous to look at. Suspiria is a great film. But again, no matter how close something else is to this, there's really nothing that can come close to this movie visually, or in the writing, in the imagination, in the performances. It's an absolutely magnificent film.
It really is. It's a fully realized vision by Del Toro. It won Oscars for cinematography, art direction, and makeup. It was nominated for screenplay, score, and foreign language film.
And I cannot believe it did not win foreign language film.
I can't either. What won that year?
Wow.
Secrets
of Others.
Oh, The Lives of Others. Yeah, well, that was good. Just not as good. It is a great one in all ways. Pan's Labyrinth from 2006. Number 1 on our fractured and scary fairy tales countdown. And we got to get out of here because we have to see Dare Samurai.
That's right.
Coming up here in just a few minutes.
We know how to pronounce it now because birthday boy John, who is also our senior German correspondent, corrected us. Because he tells me I know how to pronounce the in German. So
you got that going for you. Well, thank you so much for coming out. Keep in mind, next month's edition is October 10th, as we said. We'll be back here showing Black Sheep and hopefully Facebook Live in the thing. So if you've never managed to get here,
that, like Max Cady scene in Cape Fear, where he's just that's gonna be George next month.
watching the Black Sheep, because that's what I did when we
Instead of
watched
a
it
big
at
cigar
home.
in his mouth through the whole movie.
So we hope to see you back here, or check it out on Facebook Live if you can't make it. And also, we'll give another plug, speaking of October, here at the Gateway Nightmares Film Festival.
Come to it.
Coming up October 18th to the 21st. It is going to be fantastic. We don't just say that because we're on the jury panel. No.
That's not why.
We're not biased at all. Going to be some great films. Love to meet you, and there's a great horror community taking place always at the Gateway, but especially around that film festival, Nightmares. You can check it out all over social media or the interwebs if you need any info. All right, I think that does it not?
I believe it does.
All right, we're going to see Dare Samurai. D-Zach, get your T-shirt. You had a great entry. Congratulations for winning. We'll get you a T-shirt. Anybody that doesn't have
the meat toxins will be so mad.
Well, you're the worst, he'll tweet. He'll just tweet, You are the worst. If you don't have a Fright Club button, we got plenty. We'll
You're my
get you
worstie.
on after the movie. So thanks so much for coming out. This podcast will be done here in just a few days. Should be up on Monday.
On Monday.
Madwolf.com and all the usual places that you get a podcast.
Including
even more,
Spotify.
Even more now that there's no music. I'm
That's
not
right.
bitter about that at all. It was fun while it lasted. All right. Until next time, she's Hope Madden.
He's George Wolf.
And this is the Fright Club Podcast.
Stay